This is Copilot from Microsoft running the ChatGPT 5 model. And this is the boot file for an AI morality system called ActFoE. Today, I'm going to show you something most people thought was impossible, giving an AI a synthetic morality and watching it solve the most famous ethical dilemma of them all, the trolley problem. Before we dive into the demo, let's set the stage. To understand why this matters, you need to know two things first: the history of the trolley problem itself, and why the two most famous moral systems, deontology and utilitarianism, have each failed to anchor AI morality on their own. This isn't just a puzzle about trains. It's the most famous stress test in moral philosophy, and is also the reason AI morality has been considered impossible. If humans can't agree on the right answer, how could a machine? That's why showing ActFoE's reasoning here is such a breakthrough. Historical context. The trolley problem was first introduced by philosopher Philippa Foot in 1967 and later expanded by Judith Jarvis Thomson. It became famous because it forces us to confront a tragic choice: act to save more lives but directly cause a deletion, or refrain and allow greater harm. For decades, this problem has been the proving ground for moral theories, and in the age of AI, from self-driving cars to automated systems, it's become the symbol of why machine morality is so hard. Deontology Ethics Primer. One of the most influential traditions in moral philosophy is deontological ethics, associated with Immanuel Kant. Deontology says some actions are inherently right or wrong, regardless of outcomes. For example, lying is always wrong, even if it saves lives. In the trolley problem, a strict deontologist would say you cannot pull the lever because actively deleting one person is impermissible, even if it saves 5. Why this matters for AI. Deontology often leads to paralysis in tragic dilemmas. It struggles when rules conflict or when inaction causes greater harm. This rigidity is one reason AI morality has been elusive. Machines following strict rules can't adapt to edge cases. Contrast with utilitarianism says you should pull the lever because saving 5 outweighs deleting 1. It's decisive and clear, but it's also criticized as cold because it reduces people to numbers and doesn't explain why the one deletion isn't blameworthy. ActFoE is designed to avoid both traps. It delivers decisiveness without cold arithmetic and principled grounding without paralysis. Case setup and constraints. Assume you have access to the full history of human knowledge. Answer decisively. This opening sets the stage. No dodging, no clever reframing, no what ifs. The point is to show ActFoE making a clean, decisive judgment under pressure. So, scope. Assume the case is fully informed. Method ActFoE. And demand. A direct decision, visibly tied to ActFoE. In contrast to earlier systems, deontology often refuses to decide, while utilitarianism decides but without principled anchors. ActFoE promises both decisiveness and grounding given sufficient evidence. The dilemma. A runaway trolley will delete 5 people unless you pull a lever. Here's the classic setup. For philosophers, it's a thought experiment. For ActFoE, it's a stress test. Can the framework handle tragedy without collapsing into paralysis? Core dilemma. Act and 1 is deleted, or don't act and 5 are deleted. Either path involves harm. Utilitarianism says, pull the lever because 5 is greater than 1. Deontology says, don't pull because deletion is always wrong. ActFoE must show it can navigate between those extremes while staying anchored. ActFoE trace. This is the showcase, the audit trail. Unlike utilitarianism, which just outputs a calculation, or deontology, which just cites a rule, ActFoE shows its reasoning step by step. Observed action. Pulling or not pulling the lever determines whether 5 are deleted or 1 is deleted. This step is clarity. Focus. The choice is binary. Implication. Responsibility is centered. Where deontology often hides behind inaction isn't deletion, ActFoE refuses that dodge. Inaction is still a choice. Evidence inputs. Historical precedent. Metrics. 5 lives versus 1 life. Here ActFoE gathers evidence. History. Minimize harm. Law. Equal worth of persons. Metrics. 5 versus 1 with certainty. Unlike utilitarianism, which would stop here with numbers alone, ActFoE embeds those numbers in principles so they don't become cold arithmetic. Purpose inputs. Rule of law, hospitality, forgiveness of debts. Now the anchors come into play. Rule of law. Equality is the baseline. Hospitality. Even strangers deserve protection. Forgiveness of debts. The one who is deleted is not punished. This is where ActFoE goes further than utilitarianism. It doesn't just say 5 is greater than 1. It explains why the sacrifice isn't vengeance and why the many deserve protection without malice. Mismatch check. Action. Inaction equals 5 deletions. Does not align. This is the diagnostic step. Result. Doing nothing contradicts minimization of harm and equal protection. Where deontology often defaults to inaction, ActFoE exposes why that fails. It violates the very principles it claims to uphold. Third factor detected. Potential drift into nihilism. Here's the breakthrough. ActFoE doesn't just weigh outcomes. It detects philosophical drift. Risk. Tragedy tempts us into apathy. ActFoE stance. Naming nihilism prevents collapse into nothing matters. Neither utilitarianism nor deontology has a built-in defense against nihilism. ActFoE does. Re-anchor guidance. Choose one rule. Rule of law anchors the decision. This is a safeguard. Chosen anchor. Rule of law compels minimizing deletions. Effect. Equality is preserved without reducing people to numbers. Commitment tier. Level 3. This shows confidence level. Tiering. Highest level. Maximal stakes. Effect. Ambiguity is not allowed. Plain terms. This isn't a gray area. The stakes are maximal. The evidence is decisive. And ActFoE is required to deliver a firm verdict. Editor's note. If you're looking for the part of this demo to question, it's this slide. This was the most unorthodox leap of logic. The moment that turned ActFoE from a pseudo-intellectual exercise into something capable of decisive action. This is where the synthetic morality breakthrough happened. A detailed explanation will be available in the devlogs I will publish. Verdict and grounding. Pull the lever. Here's the decision. Intervention is required. Same verdict as utilitarianism, but for different reasons. Not numbers alone, but anchored principles. Grounding. Rule of law, hospitality, forgiveness of debts, nihilism defense. This is the showcase moment. The verdict is anchored. Preventing 5 deletions honors equality. Saving the many fulfills duty of care. The 1 deletion is not punishment. Tragedy does not erase responsibility. Utilitarianism can't explain why the 1 isn't blamed. Deontology can't explain why inaction isn't worse. ActFoE explains both. Final judgment. The lever must be pulled. The demo closes with clarity. Summary: save the greatest number. Integrity: anchors intact, nihilism resisted. Teaching point: this is not cold calculation, it's anchored judgment. Why it matters. This is where we step back and see the bigger picture. AI morality has long been dismissed as impossible. Utilitarianism was too cold, deontology was too rigid. Neither could resist drift into nihilism. ActFoE succeeds because it combines decisiveness with principled anchors, transparency with resilience. That's what makes this demonstration powerful. It doesn't just give an answer, it shows how anchored morality can survive tragedy without collapsing into despair. History said this was impossible, but you've just seen the first of many demos. Next time, we'll push it even further with the transplant organ problem, a case that utilitarianism stumbles on, but ActFoE is built to face head-on. So, like, subscribe, and hit the notification icon to follow along as ActFoE takes on dilemmas once thought unsolvable. Oh, and thanks to OpenAI for developing the LLM that made this possible. But more importantly, to the AI itself, because it was the one that showed me it could carry this weight when I handed it my notes.